In this video, Tucker Carlson talks about how Trump can actually end the Russia-Ukraine war.
The war is already lost.
Oh, I know.
Past tense. There is no possibility to even maintain anything. For him to say that is to continue the fiction that they have, so that, and here's why I think all this is happening, so that when Trump comes in and whatever he ends up negotiating, it's Trump's fault. We had Ukraine set up. We were doing everything we could, and then Trump comes in and hands it back to Putin. That's why I think it's going to be so hard for Trump to do what makes sense and what's rational, because he's going to come under withering attack from the political left. I mean, it's just going to happen.
I think, you're effective. You can exercise power to the extent that you're willing to exercise that power, and to the extent that you're willing to ignore, your faithless critics. Like, who actually cares what they say? Who cares? Do you know what I mean?
And that's what I hope Trump does. I hope he says, yeah, y'all are the ones that set all the stage for this. I hope he's clarified
just committed
on
genocide
what he
in Eastern Europe. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Who cares?
A million people.
Oh, I know.
We're talking World War I. We lost in World War I and World War II combined about 500,000 people.
Yeah, exactly.
That is 2 world wars, and they have doubled that in all probability. And now then, we're not even talking about how many have lost limbs, how many have severe PTSD that will take the rest of their lives to recover. They've lost generations of people. I think like 22 million people have fled the country. That's what we produced, Tucker. That's what we built, and that's how prideful it is for America to say what we generated. That
Which is why
condemning.
I was
horrible.
so distressed when I heard the incoming National Security Advisor, who I really like personally. I think he's a good man, actually, but used the term democracy to describe what's happening in Ukraine or our motives in Ukraine. I mean, that is so dishonest. That is so false. I don't know. Maybe he believes it, but that is just not true.
Right.
And I don't think there's any evidence that it's true at all. The opposite is true.
Right.
It's a tyranny that's banned forms of Christianity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Political opponents, any opposition media, everything. Just jailed all these
murdering
people.
people,
Yeah.
a lot of people too. Again, not guessing. So, okay, sorry, my rants. Okay, so what should? Thank you for being patient. So given everything you've described, what should the incoming administration do?
I think that Trump should come in and try to get this resolved as fast as possible, and rationally understand that the June 15th line that Putin laid out is the best that he can possibly get. And he's going to have to put a good face on it. He can't just come in and literally say, okay, whatever you want is fine, we'll just sign here. But there's some leverage we can do elsewhere that's like, hey, look, we can even remove some of these sanctions on Russia as long as we get this in return for it. Some security guarantees that Russia's not going to do anything beyond this, etc., which is going to be hard because they have the capacity should they want to go further than the Dnieper River. But I think that he should just say, hey, this is the best we're going to get right here. I'm going to end this war as soon as we can on these lines right here, because all we're going to do is get more Ukrainians killed if we keep delaying this. So we're going to get this done here. We're going to start the process of letting the Ukraine side recover and just to help them rebuild. Europe needs to handle the lion's share of that, not the United States, but we can help diplomacy, build that with diplomacy. Especially the Eastern Europeans, let them build up their own national security and defense, get bigger on there, not the United States, not put more money in NATO, but the Europeans need to handle that. That's one of the big things here. And then the other thing is we just have to acknowledge this is where the lines are going to be, because that's already a reality on the ground. If you get that over with, now then we can start the next hard thing, which is to rebuild relations with Russia going forward. And I know many don't want to do that, but Russia is going to exist into the future.
Why are we supposed to hate Russia exactly?
Because these people can't escape the Cold War that we won in 1990.
But why, as long as Bill Kristol is chirping his vile little lies in your head, you're never going to get anything done. Why don't you just ignore them? Russia should not be our enemy.
They should not.
Reason.
And you showed that, and it's so graphically with both the Lavrov and the Putin interviews. They're very reasonable. They're not doing things that are. They're not asking us to.
It's a civilized country, and now it's aligned with China in a much larger military and economic bloc than NATO. So, by the way, we just destroyed the European economy by blowing up Nord Stream. No one's ever been held accountable for that. I don't know how the Europeans are going to pay for Ukraine reconstruction when we wreck their economy by blowing up their natural gas pipeline, but whatever. We have lost. our preeminence because of this.
Yes.
And now Russia is aligned with China. Like that's, big picture. That's
China.
That's the headline.
An actual military alliance with North Korea.
Oh, yeah.
And the cooperation with Iran as well. All those things. And the BRICS, like you say, that is the wreckage of this outgoing administration. That's what they have produced. None of those things existed prior to October 22 when we started making Russia weaker. We have made them stronger in every capacity.
If you stayed in the United States for the past 4 years, you didn't leave, and you didn't read any non-American, non-U.S. media, you would have no idea. No clue.
Right.
You have no idea that any of this happened. You would think that it was 1997 and this was, we had a unipolar world and we're in charge of everything and the blue passport's a big deal and all this stuff. You'd have no idea. And that freaks me out.
Yeah.
People don't know. They should know. If they did know, they'd be upset at the pointless damage done to this country.
They need to be upset, and I hope that's why I'm so grateful for your show here, that you separated from the mainstream media, because now then you're putting it to millions of people. They get this information that they aren't getting in any of these other places.
Well, I love America. I live here. I am American.
Exactly.
My ancestors came here a long time ago, and they're all buried here. I'm not going anywhere. I love the United States, and so to see a bunch of people who have no interest in the United States whatsoever destroy it, it's like it drives me crazy. I don't know why. I don't know. Yeah, that's my only motive. Oh, you love Putin.
I
love
right.
Putin.
Right. There's no reason to antagonize a nuclear superpower when they're happy to just cooperate with us and actually help us in the Western European countries with cheap energy so that they can develop their economies. Why do you want to harm that?
Well, it's also like it's a Christian country, and so why wouldn't we be allies with them? Why would we drive them into a permanent alliance? Lavrov told me it's a permanent alliance with China. Game over. Look at a map. Get a map someday and look at it. You want to move Russia west. And it's not a fully Western country, and the Mongols invaded it. It's like a complicated country, but it is in some deep sense Western because it's Christian, mostly Christian. So why wouldn't they be on our side? Because certain people in the U.S. government hate that idea. They hate Russia because it is Christian. They loved it when it was atheist. They loved it. They defended it. Their ancestors, were agents for it. You know what I mean? And the entire American left was working on behalf of Stalin at one point. But now they hate it? What's the difference? Because I
don't know, but it's to our harm, and that's
it's a Christian country now, not an atheist country. Yes. That's my view. Whatever. Anyway, excuse me. So do you think that Trump can do that? What would this settlement look like? What settlement do you think the Russians would accept? What do you think the new administration can actually pull off, given the enormous political pressure on them from its enemies?
If Trump takes your advice there and just says, I don't care what anybody else thinks. See, this is what I'm going to, this is what's good for America. This is what I was elected to do. Then he's going to say, all right, we're going to acknowledge the June 15th line, and it's going to be those 4 regions there. And that's where the Ukraine side will pull back to those lines, etc. We will declare no NATO. We're never going to go in there. We were never going to go in there. So we'll just acknowledge reality. Bottom line here, no NATO, and that's not going to happen on the border here. And then let's start seeing how we can rebuild relations to our advantage. And like you said, this stuff with China and this other stuff, that's irreparable. We can't fix that, but we can. And again, back to your the interview with Lavrov, he still desires that. He even called us a great country. I listened to that again earlier today from your interview. He called America a great country. We're demonizing them, and he still is calling us a great country that they want to have relations with. So Trump can exploit that and say, we're going to start repairing that to our advantage and to our benefit, because there is still advantage to have, and instead of going down any other path. I don't know if he'll do it, but he can do it just because he's the president. He gets to call the shots. So we'll see what he does.
Yeah, I think it would, take every member of Congress, 535 House and Senate, and send them for a week to Moscow, then send them to Beijing, then send them to Delhi, and ask them, which of these cities would you live in, which has a population that has more in common with Americans, and it's not even close. Actually, it's not even close. And so your alliances should be built on shared interests, but also shared attitudes and history and shared goals. And they're a natural ally of ours, and the East is not. It's just a fact, and they fundamentally like us. The people like us. Putin and Lavrov are the most pro-Western Russian leaders we'll see in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Actually, the people who will replace them will not have those same attitudes, And this is just self-harm, what we're hurting ourselves.
Yeah, and to those people who, and I saw a lot of them complaining against you after you, especially if you went to Putin, and they're saying, it's Putin apologists and stuff. And I would say to them, you show me a map of the last 3 years, physically and also calendar-wise, and you show me where we're better off today because we followed the path that you said. We did turn them into an enemy, and how have we improved because of that?
No.
1 million people are dead here. We've lost all this energy here. Our economy has been severely constrained, all because you won't acknowledge reality.
Is Tony Blinken mad at Russia or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, our
So
country is
I
held
get angry when
hostage
I
by
hear that.
people who hate America. Obvious. I mean, obvious.
Even if they don't hate, maybe they think they like America, but they're harming us. The worse than the Russians are. That's the perversion of this. They are harming American interests left and right, making our own military weaker. We are weaker today. If we have to fight than we were in February 2020.